signs of becoming that type of receiver that they drafted. They drafted him as the #1 guy. You know, you're talking about Chaz Schillens, right? Murphy getting back on the field. What about Denarius Moore, who they got as a steal so far this year and is playing awfully well? Is he worth bringing in to supplant someone who's already trying to get there? That's going to be a key thing for them. Brian Billick talked about Carson Palmer, said he loved working with him in Cincinnati. That's a heavy question you've got to ask again. Make sure he's really co-signing off of that. Because it's one thing to say it when you're no longer there with a guy. Another thing to say, okay, you said it. I'm going to bring him in now. Are you true to your word on that? You really like working with him? Let's find out. So that's going to be an interesting deal. You mentioned the 49ers. Josh Morgan getting hurt now opens up a spot on the 49ers with a team that's 5-1 or whatever, you know, and Jim Harbaugh doing a really nice job in the first year with Alex Smith. So many questions to be asked. You got to find out what Terrell Owens is going to tell you.
Do you think he would fit in a Jim Harbaugh locker room?
You know what's interesting about that is that Jim Harbaugh is as tough and pugnacious a guy as you're going to get, that sometimes those guys that just butt heads all the time find a way to make it work. You know, they don't care about all that going back and forth. Just, are you going to produce on the field? I have a feeling Jim Harbaugh might be the type of guy who could work quite well with him. You know, it's an interesting dynamic because you often think those guys are more dictators, but oftentimes they're not. They kind of like guys who are fiery and go at them a little bit. So it could work for him. I'm not so sure how interested the 49ers would be in a reunion show.
Well, you know, when you think about the 49ers, you also have to ask the question, and this goes really for any team that is right now having success. And the 49ers, we joked last week, are on the verge of clinching the NFC West, considering how the rest of the division looks. They are 5-1. They're coming off the bye and the big win over the Lions. They get the Browns at home this week. It's a very winnable game. But regardless of the schedule here, they have a good thing going. Alex Smith is playing the best football of his career. They now have a 1-2 punch at running back with Frank Gore and Kendall Hunter. They've always had that threat with Vernon Davis on the roster. And yes, there is a hole at wide receiver. But you have to ask the question, are we good enough to win as we are now? And do we want to risk upsetting what we have by adding T.O. to the mix? And that's the 49ers. That's any team that says right now, we're on a roll.
It's a great point, and I think that what's going to come out of it is an organization going to sit down and ask themselves that very question and say, why do we, you know, what does he fit for us? That's why I keep going back to what Brian Billick was talking about. It's a team that has to be tracking for the playoffs. That's why at this point in the season, I'm not so sure how many people are interested in fighting just that fast because of we have stuff to determine who's actually tracking for the playoffs. Great start so far for a number of people, but even though we're joking about clinching a spot, we're nowhere near that yet.
Sure.
We're nowhere in that position. So are they really tracking? Let's find out if they're still at that point, because right now, plus he still needs time. There's no way. I mean, I hear Drew Brodell say, hey, Sunday he'll go out and play. I'm not so sure about that. I've seen him move well in this workout, but I'm not so sure about him going out on Sunday and being the T.O. that we know that we've seen in the past.
Now, tell me about the drill, Charles, that we're seeing.
Well, what they're doing now is doing, you know, we used to call stalk drill when you actually had pads on. Wide receiver goes out, runs a short little route, chops his feet, and gets himself in blocking position to take on a defender, whether it's a defensive back or an outside linebacker, depending on who's out over him, to try and block him, ward him up. What they're trying to show is that he can handle resistance, right? He can handle force. That person coming at him, he can get into a hitting position, use his hands, move with that person, and ward them off, and the knee can hold up. That's what they're showing, because you watch the trainer, he'll move like a defensive back here. Now he's just running drills where he's a DB over him, and T.O. showing he can get off the line of scrimmage with his hand movement as well as, of course, his feet.
And we're taking special interest here in the left leg, the left knee. That is the knee in which he tore his ACL and had it repaired. Again, all this information coming from T.O.'s camp, from both Terrell and from his agent, Drew Rosenhaus. They say that the knee was repaired, the surgery was in April. T.O. also went to Korea. He has received stem cell treatment in an effort to get that knee healing faster. So there are a lot of factors to take into consideration here as we see the guy work out. Hands on hips, does that tell you anything?
It tells me the same thing it tells me about everyone else. When you run through some drills, you get a little bit tired, a little bit winded, you put your hands on your hips trying to get a little bit of air. But you see the quick move at the line of scrimmage. See him trying to show that he can plant and cross over. He's going to show all the different things. But what I think would happen with team workouts is that they would move this thing along a little bit quicker. So he's getting himself plenty of time in between each movement that he makes. He makes a little burst. He walks around, he absorbs a little time, then he comes back again. I think the teams will try and put him through his paces a little bit quicker to see how the fatigue sets in.
Sure.
Does it set in quickly? How do you handle that? How do you bounce back? And you go from there. Right now, his number one thing is just putting it out there that the knee is holding up.